He bought a first-class ticket. She assumed he didn't belong. What happened after they landed, she'd remember it for the rest of her life. They say you learn who someone really is by how they treat people they think can't do anything for them. On a quiet morning at Sky Harbor International Airport, someone made a mistake that would cost them their entire career. It was just past 6:15 a.m. in Phoenix. The sun was barely up, but the gate for Flight 782 to Newark was already crowded with half-awake passengers. Earbuds in, neck pillows on, heads down for the 5-hour cross-country flight. Darius Langston walked into the gate area alone. Navy sport coat, crisp jeans, carry-on bag, nothing flashy, just intentional. He moved with quiet certainty. He didn't have something to prove. He had somewhere to be. He checked the gate number on his phone, then stepped into the first-class priority line. Group 1 had just begun boarding. "Morning," he said with a polite nod to the gate agent. She didn't respond, just scanned his ticket with a stiffness he didn't miss. He didn't react. He stepped onto the jet bridge, the distant hum of engines drowned by the hallway's industrial murmur. At the plane's door, he gave the attendant a warm, quick smile. "1A," he said casually as he stepped in. But before he reached the first row, she appeared, blonde, early 40s, sharp cheekbones, tight bun. She planted herself in front of him, arms folded, smile tight. "Sir, first class is for premium passengers only," she said. Darius blinked, puzzled but calm. "I know. This is my seat, 1A. He held up his boarding pass. The seat number was clear and bold. She glanced at the paper, barely, then handed it back without really looking. "There must be a mistake. You should be in main cabin plus. Let me help you find your seat." He tilted his head, still calm. Not angry. Not surprised. Just certain. "No, ma'am. I booked this ticket myself. First class, round trip." She sighed through her nose, small but sharp enough to let him know exactly what she thought. "Sir, we've had duplicate bookings before. Please step aside while we sort this out." "Sort what out?" His voice didn't rise, but there was weight in it. "That's my name. That's my seat. If there's an issue, I'm happy to wait until the plane is boarded and speak with a supervisor." Other passengers in first class were watching now. Some averted their eyes, pretending they hadn't heard. A man in a tie glanced up from his tablet, then looked right back down. "Please take a seat in the back. We'll figure it out once everyone's boarded," she insisted. Darius held her gaze for a moment longer, not a threat, not a plea, just a pause. Then he nodded once, turned, and walked slowly down the aisle. He passed row after row of tired faces, eyes flicking up then away, whispers curling behind him. A few passengers exchanged that look, the one that said "we saw," but were not saying anything. Row 27. Middle seat. A crying toddler behind him. Two strangers pressed in at each side. He sat down, not because he had to, but because he chose to. And that was her second mistake. Because quiet doesn't mean blind. And silence doesn't mean deaf. "Can you believe that?" the man to Darius's left muttered under his breath. Big hands, flannel shirt, the kind of man who worked with them, too. Darius glanced over. "Excuse me. I saw what they did up front. That was messed up, man. You had a first-class ticket, right?" Darius nodded once. "Figures," the man said, shaking his head. "Wouldn't happen to me, though. I mean, look at me." He gave a half-apologetic, half-bitter chuckle. Darius let out a small, polite smile but didn't say much else. He faced forward, calm. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened. But it had been a while. He'd thought he was past this kind of moment. He'd built a company from a garage desk into an operation with offices in 4 states. Closed deals over steak dinners with men who once ignored his emails. Sat across from billionaires who'd asked if he was with the tech team, not realizing he owned the tech. And now here he was. Told he didn't belong in a seat he'd paid for. The captain's voice broke the moment. "Good morning, folks. Welcome aboard Flight 782, non-stop service from Phoenix to Newark. Estimated flight time is 5 hours and 3 minutes. Weather's smooth today, sit back, relax, and we'll be off shortly." The plane backed out from the gate. Flight attendants moved down the aisle, checking seatbelts, closing overheads. And she was back, the same attendant from before. Rhonda. She didn't look at Darius as she passed row 27. He watched her, not with spite, just with clarity. She stopped 2 rows ahead, leaning in to chat with an older white-haired man in a crisp suit. He held up a card, some high-tier loyalty status. "Oh, Mr. Halberstam," she cooed, her smile suddenly bright, warm, practiced. "Always a pleasure. If there's anything I can do for you on this flight, just say the word." She didn't know she was still being watched. Darius saw every choice she made. Half an hour later, the drink cart rattled down the aisle. He declined. So did the man in flannel. The toddler behind him kicked his seat again. Darius didn't flinch. He pulled out his phone. No signal yet, but it didn't matter. He opened a secure app and typed a short note. "Confirm ops control by 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, staff eval on 782 complete." He saved it. Set the phone down. This wasn't a threat. It was just time. The crew didn't know. None of the passengers knew. But this flight wasn't just a ride to a meeting. It was the final piece in a quiet merger Darius had spent 8 months stitching together. His company, Remy, had just acquired full operational oversight of Volair Regional, the airline running this very flight under a major carrier's banner. He hadn't planned to be on board. His lawyers had offered to fly in his place. But he insisted. Not for control, for clarity. And now he had it. Seat 1A stayed empty. Midway through the flight, the man in flannel tapped Darius's arm. "Hey, man, if you want, I'll switch. Take the middle seat for a bit. Give you some space." Darius smiled, appreciative but firm. "That's kind of you. But I'm good." "You sure? You've been quiet this whole time." "I've had a lot to think about." Flannel chuckled. "You one of those stock guys or something?" Darius's smile returned, faint but real. "Something like that. Bet you make more than everyone back here put together." Darius didn't answer. He didn't need to. He leaned back. Closed his eyes. By the time they landed, everything would be different. 7 years earlier, Darius Langston was sweating through the collar of a cheap button-up in a cramped office above a laundromat in Tempe, Arizona. No AC, just a rattling box fan that coughed warm air around the room. He was 29, fresh off a failed pitch to a roomful of angel investors who spent the entire meeting asking who built the product, even though he'd told them twice he did. "That's impressive," one of them had said, surprise thick in his voice. "Didn't expect that." Darius had smiled through his teeth. Back then, Remy wasn't even Remy. It was a prototype and a name scribbled on a sticky note, a workflow automation tool built from scratch. Code, design, back-end, UI, every line was his. Big companies would pay for it, if they believed the person behind it looked the part. If they believed he was credible. If they could see past him long enough to see the product. He worked nights loading boxes at a 24-hour FedEx hub to cover rent. Ate gas station sandwiches. Slept on a twin mattress on the floor of a 2-bedroom he shared with an old college buddy, and 3 roaches they never fully got rid of. But he kept building. Not because he dreamed of yachts or corner offices. He just wanted to own something. To prove he was more than a good kid, well-spoken, surprisingly technical. Then came the break. A mid-size logistics firm in Dallas. A junior manager tried Darius's tool on a small project. Productivity shot up 19% in 3 weeks. Word spread. More teams used it. Darius got flown out to places he'd never heard of. He never bragged. Never raised his voice. Always showed up early. Always listened more than he spoke. But behind the calm was a man who'd been doubted every step of his life, and turned every doubt into something solid. When Remy signed a $9.6 million annual deal with a shipping giant in Memphis, the investors who once ignored him came crawling back. He didn't take their calls. Instead, he built a team that looked like him, sharp, hungry, underestimated people who didn't want just a paycheck but a purpose. It worked. Revenue doubled 4 years straight. They bought up 2 small competitors. Then a mid-tier regional tech firm. Then came the big play, Air Regional, an airline division losing money, bleeding cash, stuck with outdated systems no one cared to fix. Darius saw the potential. Structured the deal quietly with his CFO, a shell management group to avoid headlines, keep his name off the news until the ink was dry. Few people knew Remy was the one pulling the strings. Which made this flight poetic. The same airline that once wouldn't return his calls now partly belonged to him. And they had no idea the man in 27B, knees jammed, seat kicked by a toddler, was the one signing the checks. He wasn't angry. He was focused. There's a power in knowing exactly who you are when others choose not to see you. But knowing isn't enough, you have to choose what you'll do with it. An hour into the flight, the seatbelt sign blinked off. Passengers shuffled, stretched, made for the bathrooms. Darius didn't move. He pulled his laptop from under the seat. Opened a secure folder, OPS merge, Tier 1 only. His fingers moved slowly. This wasn't about speed, it was about control. He scrolled the integration checklist. One section stood out, Personnel Conduct Audit, Random Sample Evaluation. He clicked it. Flight 782 was on the list. Every staff member, from the pilot to the cabin crew, already flagged for internal review. He pulled up a name, Rhonda M. Wilkes. Status, temporary hold pending review. Notes, prior passenger complaints. Service discrepancies documented. He stared at the screen for a long, steady moment. No anger. No satisfaction. Just truth. He minimized the window. Opened an internal ops chat. Darius Remy, need full incident log, Flight 782, cabin crew interaction, 5:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 6:20 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Forward to legal and HR. Ops admin, already compiling. Julia C., looping in comms once the review doc is done. Escalate now or on landing. Darius, ground team meets plane in Newark. Quiet. No media. No drama. Professional tone only. Ops admin, understood. Final report by 2:30 Eastern. He closed the laptop. The man in flannel glanced at him. Work never stops, huh? Darius looked over. Not really. You look like you run something. No offense taken. You in tech? Something like that. Yeah, my cousin's kid's learning that. Big money, right? Darius didn't answer. He didn't need to. Far up the aisle, Rhonda walked past again, all warmth for the right rows, all silence for his. She stopped 2 rows ahead, leaned in close to Halberstam. How's that coffee, Mr. Halberstam? Still hot enough? She patted his shoulder like she'd known him for years. Darius watched. Quiet. Focused. It was never about coffee. 10 minutes later, a different attendant came by, young, maybe mid-20s, nervous energy. Sir, he said, low. Mr. Langston. Darius looked up. I saw what happened up front. I should have said something. I didn't know who you were, but even if I didn't. Darius held up a hand, not harsh, just calm. What's your name? Brent. Brent, let me ask you something. If I wasn't who I am, would you still be apologizing? Brent blinked. I think so. Good, Darius said. Keep doing that. Quiet integrity matters. Brent nodded, unsure what to do next. Darius gave him a small nod, go. Brent left. Darius closed his eyes again, steady as the engines hummed outside. Every company has people like Rhonda, people who think humility is weakness, who assume authority means they never answer for anything. But power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it sits in coach. Sometimes it waits. And waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means choosing the right moment to act. The wheels hit the tarmac in Newark just after 2:11 p.m. The usual landing announcements drifted over the speakers, half heard under the sound of seatbelts snapping open and passengers stretching like they hadn't moved in years. Phones came out. Emails resumed. Darius didn't reach for his bag. He just sat there, calm, steady, eyes forward. Through the gap between the seats, he could see Rhonda up front, all performative smiles again. Thanking first-class passengers by last name like she'd known them forever. The pilot stepped out too, standing by the cockpit door, repeating, "Thanks for flying," in that flat, rehearsed tone. He glanced at Darius but said nothing. Row 27 shuffled forward slowly. Darius didn't rush. The man in flannel gave him a nod as he passed. Good flying with you, boss man. Hope they treat you better next time. Darius gave him a tight smile. Hope you get that middle seat back. They both chuckled. Then Darius stepped out into the aisle, each step measured. Calm. Controlled. As he passed row 1A, still empty, he looked at Rhonda. She didn't even notice. Too busy flashing that smile for the next group of premium travelers. That was her third mistake. At the top of the jet bridge, two sharply dressed people waited by the gate, a woman and a man in tailored suits, clipboards in hand, earpieces in. Not airline staff. Corporate. Serious. They didn't make a scene. The man leaned toward the gate agent, flashed an ID, whispered something quietly. The woman pointed subtly toward the plane door and waited. Inside, the crew began filing out. Rhonda came first, laughing at something another attendant said, fake laugh, bright and hollow. She froze when she saw the two waiting for her. Ms. Wilkes, the woman said, polite but firm. We need to speak with you privately. Right this way. Wait, what? About what? Rhonda stammered. The man didn't answer. He just motioned toward a side hallway off the gate. Passengers kept streaming out, oblivious. No raised voices. No drama. But Rhonda's smile dropped like glass. I don't understand, why me? You'll be fully briefed, the woman said calmly. This won't take long. The other crew members froze, eyes darting between Rhonda and the suits, pretending not to see what they were seeing. One of them turned back to the plane. And that's when Rhonda saw him. Darius, still standing just inside the jet bridge. Bag over his shoulder. Watching, not with anger. Not with triumph. Just clarity. Her mouth opened, searching for words that wouldn't come. Wait, who are you? He stepped forward just enough to be heard over the echo of the terminal. You should have just looked at the ticket. She blinked, speechless. The man in the suit cleared his throat. This way, Ms. Wilkes. They led her off the jet bridge. Passengers filed past, none the wiser. Some glanced at Darius, sensing they'd missed something big, and they had. But this moment wasn't for them. He stepped out into the gate area. The air smelled like stale pretzels and carpet cleaner. By a coffee kiosk, a man waited, suit, neat haircut, tablet tucked under his arm. One of Darius's regional managers. "Mr. Langston," he said quietly. "It's done. Full documentation. HR has the interviews lined up. No press, as requested." "Good," Darius said. "You want to handle the follow-up yourself?" "No," Darius replied. "Keep it internal. Keep it clean. No theater." The man nodded. "Headed to the hotel?" "In a bit," Darius said, glancing back at the concourse. "Let me breathe first." The manager left. Darius stood there for a moment, alone but not small, a man with a carry-on bag, a clear mind, and the last word no one heard him speak. He pulled out his phone. A new message blinked on the screen. "Acquisition confirmed. Transition phase begins." He smiled, just barely. Power handled loudly is ego. Power handled quietly is strategy. Somewhere down the terminal, past gate 43, Rhonda Wilkes sat in a small side room. A glass of lukewarm water in her trembling hand. Her ID badge still clipped to her uniform, the lanyard now feeling tighter than ever. Across the table sat two HR specialists from Volaire's East Coast corporate office, and an observer from Remy's internal compliance team. Nain Foster, older, calm, taking notes with quiet authority. Rhonda shifted in her seat. "I don't understand. Is this about something on the flight?" The HR rep nodded. "We're reviewing your conduct on Flight 782. Multiple passengers reported a concerning incident. We also received a directive for immediate evaluation from Remy's executive team." "Remy?" Rhonda asked, confused. "That's not the airline." Nain looked up, her voice even. "They now manage all Volaire regional operations. Including yours." The words hit her like a slap. The color drained from her face. "Wait, this is about that man? The one who sat in coach?" Nain's tone stayed level. "No. This is about you. And your choices." Rhonda opened her mouth but the HR rep cut in, firm. "You didn't just make a mistake. You escalated a situation that never needed to exist. And this isn't your first passenger complaint." Rhonda stared down at her trembling hands. "So, what now?" "You're suspended without pay pending full review," the HR rep said flatly. "A final decision will be made within 72 hours. Rhonda didn't argue. She didn't have anything left to say. Meanwhile, near baggage claim, Darius stood in line for a rideshare, no black car, no security escort. Just a man in a clean jacket, a tired carry-on by his side. A silver Hyundai pulled up. An older Ethiopian driver, Molu, gave him a kind nod. "Business trip?" he asked as they merged onto the highway. "Something like that," Darius said. "You fix the company or break it?" Molu asked, half joking. Darius let out a small laugh. "A bit of both, I guess." Molu nodded, satisfied. "Sometimes both is needed." Darius looked out the window as Newark's gray skyline came into view. Not much to look at, but today it felt different. Today something was set right. Not because someone got punished, but because, for once, accountability didn't get lost somewhere over 30,000 feet. He thought of all the times he'd been followed in stores. Overlooked in meetings. Mistaken for the intern when he was running the meeting. He didn't need revenge. Just clarity. And now he had it.